from the CBS Broadcast Center in Los Angeles, this is CBS2 News at 5 p.m.
Police bust a busy burglar who they say hit nearly 24 apartments in Koreatown.
Now, that prolific serial burglar began his crime spree last year.
And police say he worked quickly when he slipped in and out with his loot.
And CBS2's Dave Lopez is live in Koreatown with security video that finally helped catch that suspect. Dave.
Well, it took a while, according to police, and they were frustrated, but they got him, finally. His bail is $1 million. He worked alone. He has no idea, at least police have no idea where he lived. He didn't have a known job, and he would get in these apartments. Many of them would be unlocked, and when they were locked, he would pick them with an ice pick type of device. But the big question, he took a lot of money, a lot of jewels, and police can't find any of it. Where'd it go? Thanks to the security video, which police released more than 4 months ago, detectives knew what the man they call the serial bandit looked like. They just didn't have a name, and they couldn't find him until now.
Marcelina Perez, the Koreatown serial burglar.
He's 54. Detectives say he worked alone. They have no idea where he lived, but he was extremely prolific, hitting 21 times in the last 18 months.
And the estimated value of the property stolen reached nearly $200,000. In one burglary alone, he stole almost $48,000 from a family trying to save money to buy their own home.
When asked why it took so long to find him, detectives simply said he was good and he would disappear from time to time. There were moments when he wouldn't commit a burglary in more than 2.5 months.
He looked like someone that would be working in the apartment building, which was why many of the residents or citizens didn't take any issue with it.
Detectives say he was extremely brazen. Once he got in, he would help himself to whatever he could grab, completely oblivious that, at least in this apartment, his every move was being recorded.
Fortunately, we got lucky. We found him walking down the street, we identified him, and we took him into custody.
That was August 16th. He didn't have any jewelry or money or goods on him. He wasn't armed, and he was alone. And he couldn't tell detectives what he had done with all the money. Today, people who live in the area that were hit, off camera, told me that they were relieved that an arrest has been made. None of them wanted to say anything on camera. One woman told me, off camera, "I'm just glad it's over." So again, his bail is $1 million. He did not strike at night. It was always during the day, and in all cases except for one, the place was empty. No one was home. And he never struck, as I mentioned, on the weekends, Monday through Friday, Friday being his favorite day, 9 times. Police say they have all the evidence they need, except they admit the money and the jewels. Where'd it go? Near Koreatown, Dave Lopez, CBS2 News.
All right, thanks, Dave. Well, people are rushing to stores and stocking up as a dangerous Category 4 hurricane churns toward the Hawaiian Islands.
Yeah, Hurricane Lane is now weakening as it heads towards Hawaii, but it is still expected to pack a punch.
Yeah, shelters are already open and ships have been moved out of Pearl Harbor.
CBS 2's Lisa Siegel is live at LAX, where she spoke today with concerned travelers and local residents as well who cannot escape the hurricane. Lisa?
For the first 15 minutes.
Well, you guys, here at LAX behind me, people are actually leaving for Hawaii still, but most that we talked with say they were just happy to get a flight home.
I'm very concerned, actually.
Danica Dinsmore was headed to Hawaii to visit her mom. Now she's canceling her trip.
As of this morning, my mother said that she would be worried if I were flying and stuck in Honolulu because I'm trying to get to Hilo.
It's very lucky that I got out with my sister and my mom.
And the way back home hasn't been easy for some because of overbooked flights out of Hawaii. Landing at LAX was the best feeling for Lauren Beach.
All the flights were open for one day, and then the next day, 70 seats were gone.
Beach and many other travelers are getting out of the way of Hurricane Lane. The hurricane could bring pounding surf, damaging winds, flash flooding, and mudslides.
We plan on going downstairs into a hallway where there's no windows.
Robin Heyman is with her daughter on vacation. They don't have a flight back here until Monday and are concerned. We spoke by FaceTime.
Depending on how bad the winds are and the rain and the flooding, we could be stuck because the roads could close.
So they stocked up and got what they could, but like so many others are dealing with this. Long lines for gas and empty shelves like these at store after store.
I've lived through Hurricane Eva and Hurricane Iniki when I was a kid.
Cindy Pallirossio lives in Oxnard but is visiting family in Oahu where she grew up. As a child, she saw the destruction left by 2 hurricanes and says no one should take this lightly.
You can never double guess
Mother Nature. She has a mind of her own. You kind of have to just go with it and hope for the best.
As for Danica Dinsmore, she is turning in her tickets. She did what her mom said and is canceling her flight, but not without trepidation.
I'm quite worried about her as well.
Now, a spokesman for LAX told us while there are no flight disruptions yet, there very well may be. So if you are going to travel, make sure to check with your airline constantly. At LAX, I'm Lisa Siegel, CBS 2 News.
All right, thanks for that, Lisa. Well, let's turn now to CBS 2's Garth Kemp with a look at the latest on Hurricane Lane.
Yeah, what's going to happen as they get closer to, they're going to start moving aircraft off the islands as well. But right now, well-defined eye continues. It is down to a Cat 4. I mentioned that yesterday, 155 miles an hour, so it slipped one below a Cat 5, which is 156 miles an hour. It is still slow. That is the major problem right now. We're watching it being steered about north-northwest at around 8 miles an hour. It's coming around the base of a ridge that is out here, so it's steering it up now northward. We are waiting for a leftward turn, which should happen in about 72 hours. But for the next 48 hours, we'll see it start to pick up some wind shear. That's not good for hurricanes. That would start to detach it out. It's got real well-defined eye wall for us right now, and that's been throwing out a lot of lightning in the wall, so it's very cold inside the wall. Those cloud tops are really cold right now. There's the path that we're projecting. This is the dirty side of the hurricane always, the northeast side. Strong storm surge, but the major concern is even if this goes down to a Cat 1 as it gets closer and shears apart towards the islands, it's on the dirty side. Strong storm surge, slow moving, 15 to 20 inches of rain. So flooding, mudslides, that's going to be the main problem. The winds will start to die down. Hurricane warnings are up from the Big Island right now. It's about 420 miles south of Hawaii, about 280 south of the Big Island, and hurricane warnings are up from there all the way up through Maui. We're going to keep an eye on that one. We'll let you know more coming up as we make our way through the evening and the hurricane hunters fly through again later on today, plus our forecast in a few minutes. Back to you.
Okay, Garth, thank you. A developing story now involving Kevin Spacey. The LA County District Attorney's Office confirmed that it has now accepted a case involving another sexual assault accusation against the actor. Sheriff's investigators say the abuse happened in October of 2016 in Malibu and involved an adult male. Spacey was already under investigation by the DA's office for the allegation of sexual assault from 1992. Spacey is also under investigation, we're told, in London.
Well, the man accused of killing a Penn State student in an Orange County park was in court today. Sam Woodward was arraigned on a hate crime enhancement charge in the murder of his former high school classmate Blaze Bernstein. Woodward pleaded not guilty. He allegedly stabbed Bernstein to death in January. His body was found in a shallow grave at a park in Lake Forest. Orange County's DA says Woodward did it because Bernstein was gay. His attorney says Woodward has issues with his own sexual orientation.
But now to new questions today about what President Trump knew and when he knew it.
All of this comes on the heels of a plea deal by the president's former fixer, Michael Cohen, who told a judge yesterday he made hush money payments at the president's direction.
CBS 2 political reporter Dave Bryan joins us now with the White House's reaction and a look at the legal challenges facing the president.
Legal challenges could be important, but today the president said he feels a sense of betrayal. He didn't say that, but he certainly indicated that was the case. The fallout from the felony convictions of Michael Cohen and Paul Manafort are still resonating this evening. Besides the questions raised about possible campaign finance law violations, Michael Cohen's plea deal undercuts some of the president's previous denials about payments to women who say they had affairs with him. For more than a decade, Michael Cohen was President Trump's lawyer and fixer, but today Mr. Trump expressed his sense of betrayal, tweeting, "If anyone is looking for a good lawyer, I would strongly suggest that you don't retain the services of Michael Cohen." Yesterday, Cohen pleaded guilty to tax evasion and campaign finance violations. He admitted under oath that Mr. Trump directed him to make hush payments to adult film star Stormy Daniels and Playboy model Karen McDougal for the primary purpose of influencing the election. But on Fox News today, President Trump said this about his knowledge of those payments.
Later on, I knew. Later on. But you have to understand, Ainsley, what he did, and they weren't taken out of campaign finance. That's a big thing. That's a much bigger thing. Did they come out of the campaign? They didn't come out of the campaign. On
CBS this morning, Cohen's lawyer, Lanny Davis, said Cohen also has information that would be of interest to special counsel Robert Mueller's investigation on Russian interference.
I can tell you that he is committed 100% to telling the truth, to governmental authorities.
There are no charges against him in this, and just because Michael Cohen made a plea deal doesn't mean that that implicates the president on anything.
President Trump tweeted that Cohen's violations are not a crime and that I feel very badly for Paul Manafort. Such respect for a brave man. The president's reaction has some wondering if he plans to pardon Manafort.
Pardon in this circumstance would be perceived by many Americans as, interfering with an investigation.
Lawmakers on both sides of the aisle expressed concern.
We have to look into this. There's no question about it. It's a serious set of problems.
This is a day when the President of the United States has essentially been named an unindicted co-conspirator.
But Democrats say it's too early in the process to discuss impeachment. Now, Democrats do say they want Judge Brett Kavanaugh's Supreme Court confirmation halted as a result of the latest developments in the Cohen case and the possibility that the president could be facing legal action. The Dems say if Kavanaugh joins the high court, he may have a role in determining the legal fate of the president who nominated him. And that, they say, would be a conflict of interest. Pat, back to you.
All right, thanks for that, Dave. Now for a local story involving the Trump administration. The city of L.A. is suing to stop the administration from withholding federal funds because of the battle over immigration. L.A. City Attorney Mike Feuer says more than $1 million to fight gang violence here is on the line. The Department of Justice has threatened several cities if they refuse to cooperate with federal agents looking for illegal immigrants. Feuer says what the Trump administration is doing is a threat to public safety.
President Trump and Attorney General Sessions should be ashamed. Not only is this effort disgraceful, court after court has ruled that it's unconstitutional. We're going to fight to uphold the rule of law here in Los Angeles.
The city of Los Angeles won a similar lawsuit against the Trump administration after immigration enforcement requirements were placed on a different federal grant.
A Southern California Republican Congressman Duncan Hunter says he's innocent of the charges that he and his wife face that they used campaign funds for their personal use. Hunter says he's excited to defend himself in court. A couple is charged with using $250,000 of campaign money on everything from family vacations to theater tickets, even fast food and video games. Prosecutors say that between 2009 and 2016, the couple also used campaign money to pay for dental work and their children's school tuition. Those expenses were then listed on campaign finance records as donations. Hunter claims the FBI and Justice Department are politically motivated. Speaker Paul Ryan says Hunter will be removed from his committee assignments during the investigation. And coverage of today's political news continues at 6:30 on the CBS Evening News with Jeff Glor.
Well, there's been a shortage of the life-saving EpiPen device.
Yeah, 2 on your side takes a look at what is being done to fix that problem.
The murder of Molly Tibbetts gets political. Was her accused killer in the country illegally? We sort out the latest in the case.
Plus, massive flames overtake a building in downtown L.A. Was it arson? The latest on that investigation.
And potential legal drama after the death of the Queen of Soul, Aretha Franklin. We'll show you what her sons say about her estate.